Good Friday morning and welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Morning Show. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys joining us this morning. If you're watching us live, we appreciate that. If you are watching us later or listening to us later, we do upload these shows to www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast. You can check them out there, and we do appreciate you listening to them there as well. Also want to let folks know or remind folks, we do have a free page on our website, www.livingstonparishnews.com/coronavirus, which is all free, no paywall. You can go check all those stories out. Where Mr. David Gray and I, as well as Mr. Rob DeArmond, we're all trying to keep up with the ever fluid and ever shifting landscape of the way the coronavirus is affecting Louisiana. So we invite you to check that out. Again, it is free. www.livingstonparishnews.com/coronavirus. Getting into your traffic today, it's relatively clear. Of course, school being out, traffic is not so bad as mostly essential workers are going to work today. There is some minor delays at 4-H Club Road, River Road, and 190 as people, I suppose, are heading into work. It is so funny. I did wash my hands this morning before I started the show, but it's like all of a sudden your face itches more and you get more eyelashes in your eye and stuff. You know, don't touch your face. It's very difficult. It's very hard. Getting into your weather, intermittent clouds today, but mostly sunny. You're looking at 57 degrees currently. 81 degrees is going to be your high. So it is going to get warm during the day. 62 degrees, your overnight low. We had another major spike yesterday, but it's caused some discussion surrounding these numbers that get released every day. And we're going to talk about that in just a second when we sort of get to the governor's press conference from yesterday and some of the things he said. But those raw numbers were 9,150 cases of coronavirus, 310 deaths, 1,639 hospitalized, on 507 ventilators, and you're looking at 51,000 total tests so far. Livingston Parish specifically, 33 cases on 148 tests. Yesterday, Governor Edwards extended his stay-at-home order through April 30th officially. We kind of known this has been coming since about Sunday, but he officially put it down on paper. What that means is that local officials now have that written piece of paper that says this is what you can and this is what you cannot do, and they'll start making decisions. The Department of Education released some guidance yesterday, basically stating that local school districts are going to have to make their own decision on how to handle the rest of the school year. We have been in contact with the Livingston Parish school system. Last night, they had begun meeting on the new proclamation, and we'll get to those points in just a second. The governor reiterated yesterday, remember, for a while doesn't mean that we're going to be under the stay-at-home mandate for a while when we're talking about how long we're going to have to deal with the coronavirus. However, mitigation efforts and social distancing may have to last into the fall. I know there is a report right now from the University of Pittsburgh that they may have the early workings of a vaccine, which is great news for everybody, but we also have to remember that it has to go through certain approval processes. It has to be tested on a federal level and things of that nature before it can be released for public consumption. And then it has to be manufactured on a large scale. So we could be looking at still at least 6 months. Right now, the timeline is anywhere from about 10 to 14 at this point. If that vaccine proves to not be approved or not be scientifically sound, I guess you could say. So he reiterated that it's going to be an unpleasant amount of time. People are going to be social distancing and mitigating for a while, but that doesn't mean that the stay-at-home order is going to last through the fall. But remember, those social distancing and mitigation efforts are washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. I mean, this should be standard practice at this point. I mean, even if we get to a point where everybody's vaccinated against COVID-19, this is probably a habit you should pick up for forever. You should also be controlling your cough with your elbow or your tissue. That includes sneezing. Keeping 6 feet away from you and others in public and at work. Disinfecting common surfaces. And staying home if you are sick. Please remember, don't go to, even if you're essential, don't go to work if you're sick. Call your doctor via telehealth. get in touch with them, see what you can do from home, and also, call your employer. See what you can do from home, then call your doctor and see if you need to go get a COVID-19 test or if you're just sick. But either way, we're not looking to spread sickness, so if you are sick, stay home. But those are the efforts that might have to last through the fall. Right now, there are reports of the virus in places where there is a desert, including places like Saudi Arabia, which is about 110 degrees during the day. You have to understand that right now what they're starting to learn is that this thing doesn't really know weather, so they're not expecting it to die down during the summer, but that may change. Of course, this is all fluid. It changes very constantly. One of the things that he did discuss, and we brought this up earlier, is looking at these numbers coming out. One of the things that they're happy about is that the testing numbers going up. They knew that would be the State Department of Health knew that the case numbers would be going up. But one of the things they have realized is that a lot of these case reports hit a log jam. And what that means is that, for instance, the 2 drive-thrus that they had in New Orleans that were doing about 250 a day, well, a lot of their tests from last week still haven't even come in. So they're waiting for those to hit, and they expect another major increase. Joe McHugh said it took days for him to get his. He ended up with a massive fever and losing 15 pounds before he ended up in the hospital. So please remember, looking at the cases isn't necessarily the thing that we should be focused on. What is interesting and what should be focused on, of course, the deaths are unacceptable in a lot of different instances, but deaths is something that the state's looking at. But the real big deal is the number of people hospitalized, and here I am scratching my eye again, is the number of people hospitalized and the number of people on ventilators. Those are the 2 big factors that are real-time data that the state can take and use to model. They don't use the case numbers to model. So really, when you're getting these things out, you need to be looking for those 2 figures that we put out. How many hospitalized, which right now is 1,639 with COVID-19, and 507 ventilators. One of the things that they have added to the Department of Health dashboard that we're going to be looking at is the number of beds available, the number of intensive care beds available, and the number of ventilators available in any given health region. Of course, there are 9 regions in Louisiana. One of the things that we have discussed before is that you need to keep an eye on those 2 figures, because if the way they present them is like a bar graph, and there is an orange piece that says how many are in use, and there is a blue piece that says how much capacity remains. Once that orange bar overtakes the blue bar, that's when Louisiana is in trouble. That's when we end up at Italy levels where we have to say, unfortunately, who gets care and who doesn't, because we just don't have the capacity for it. Now, right now, they're still blue. There is still capacity to take more patients on. And if we can flatten the curve of the number of new people entering the hospital, that's the big one, the number of people entering the hospital on a day-to-day basis, we might be able to avoid those rather gruesome and morbid outcomes. So please remember, stay home. It's very important that you do. Try not to spread this disease, because while some people are asymptomatic and are carrying it. There's a study out of Iceland that the governor cited yesterday that upwards of 50% of a population are going to end up having COVID-19. So please remember, it affects some people worse than others. There are going to be some people that just never show symptoms. For some people, it's going to be a bad cold. For others, they're going to end up in a hospital on a ventilator. So please remember that this affects everyone differently, and it is in the state's best interest, and it is in your best interest and your family's best interest for you to stay home. The longer you stay home, the better you practice those mitigation efforts, and the better you practice social distancing, the quicker this goes away, and we can at least try to go back to work outside of our homes, at least for some of us who are not essential workers. And hopefully a lot of those folks that got laid off, and we will talk about them in a second, they can get back to work as well. The governor also wanted to let folks know that starting at 4 p.m. every day, he would be utilizing the emergency alert system on your phone. You probably got one yesterday. It's just like if there's supposed to be some sort of hurricane, tornadoes, bad thunderstorms, that kind of thing. Same kind of deal, letting folks know what the new numbers are and what they can do to help themselves. Also, if you're looking for up-to-date information, they do have a text system through the state. You can text LA COVID That's LACOVID to 67283. Again, that's LA COVID, LACOVID to 67283. Please remember that. Also, if you are looking for these numbers, if you want to go pick around with them, kind of get an idea of what they look like from the Department of Health, so that when you read the stories or when I talk to you about the numbers, they make a little more sense. You can find that dashboard at ldh.la.gov/coronavirus. Again, that's ldh.la.gov/coronavirus. Recommend you go check that out. There is a lot of good information there. And it's good to keep up with what's going on. And remember, it presents a lot of those main numbers right there at the top of the map. Underneath the map is where you can find the tabs for gender, age, that sort of thing, but it's where you can find the bed numbers, the ICU beds, and the ventilator numbers. So recommend you check that out. Again, we talked about the school board is going to be meeting over the next couple of days. We're looking for an announcement probably sometime in the next 3 days about how they're going to handle the end of school. Now the Department of Education has told them that this is up to you. This is up to you how you want to do it. But this stay-at-home order will be extended through April 30th, and also social distancing and mitigation will go well past that. So, that will affect things like graduation. One of the things I did not mention earlier, and I apologize for that, under the social distancing and mitigation efforts, 10 or less people in a gathering, 10 or less people in an office. So please keep that in mind. That's obviously going to affect graduation. So they're going to be looking at options for that. According to Superintendent Joe Murphy, they will have a graduation. It's just, what does it look like and when will it be? These are the questions that still have to be answered. But the school board has assured seniors and parents that they will figure it out. As far as how they will handle other kids and advancing to new grades, that they'll be looking at that guidance and trying to come up with their own, I guess you can say, processes as well. So we'll be staying on top of that. We will get that word out to you just as soon as the school board makes a decision. But couple of pieces of, I guess, normal news. Construction continues on Denham Springs Elementary, and Southside Junior High will be moving forward with bidding later in April at the school board's second meeting. They met last night. We'll talk about that in a second. But these things will continue. They're going to be practicing appropriate social distancing, according to contractor John Blunt, who has the Denham Springs Elementary contract. He will be, they have a lot of guidance, especially from the Builders Association, on how to operate a construction site and manage these social distancing efforts. Still looking to get Denham Springs Elementary open for the 2021-2022 school year. So not this upcoming school year, but the year after. Still looking to get the Southside Junior High mega campus open for that year as well. So going to see, keep your fingers crossed. We'll see how that goes. We also talked about the school board. They did meet last night. It was a digital meeting. A lot of comments are supposed to be submitted ahead of time. I'm sure they're going to be refining that process, as they're going to have to host one more meeting with regard to the stay-at-home order, which means they're going to have to at least do it online. And if social distancing and that sort of thing stays in effect going past April 30th, they'll probably have to continue to do this as well. Had a little bit of technical difficulties at the beginning, but they talked about a couple of things. We're going to be getting with Mr. David Gray today to talk about what they did, and we'll let you guys know on Monday. And there was a few pieces of small business. It seemed to me that the meeting was there to kind of see how the logistics are going to flow. The SBA 7A loan application, which is the Paycheck Protection Program, is online. It's on our website, www.livingstonparishnews.com/coronavirus. You can find it under the Garrett Graves story, where he announced that the application was open. A lot of businesses will be looking to go through their bank. However, not every bank here locally has gotten on board with it. One thing you can do is get the application, fill it out, send it back to the SBA, and they can place you with a bank. Again, you can also find you can find that application either on the SBA's website, which is Small Business Administration, or on the IRS website. Also want to remind folks that in order to get registered for your tax return, because that will put you in line or in the queue to get your, it's a tax rebate from future dates. So the $1,200 check and the $500 for your kids up to a certain amount of income, and then it tiers off. is a result of you filling out your most recent tax return. For the government to determine what you're going to get. Please remember that money is a rebate on future tax returns, most likely either next year or the year after. So please keep that in mind. It's kind of your borrowing from your future self, I guess you can say. The state of Louisiana Economic Development, has opened a series of local loans as well that they think might be a little quicker than the federal version, but these are regular loans. They are not forgivable like the Paycheck Protection Program is, and but they do have a nominal interest rate, which is low. You're looking at opportunitylouisiana.org to go check those out. Also want to jump right back to the Paycheck Protection Program real quick. And please remember that if you use that on payroll, rent or mortgage insurance, as well as utilities, if you make sure that you use that loan for those three categories, it is forgivable. And it's supposed to be up for 8 weeks. You're looking at taking your average payroll, multiplying it by 2.5 or 250%, and that should give you the loan amount to expect from the federal government. And again, as long as you use that money for payroll and to retain employees, you can't let employees go during the time of the loan. And as long as you are using it to pay utilities, mortgage interest, or rent, you should be good to go. It will be forgiven. 6.6 million people nationwide have filed for unemployment insurance. That's roughly a bump in 2% in the unemployment. Excuse me. The state has handed out $20 million so far through Wednesday of this week. The governor announced that yesterday. So this is something that is going to continue to affect folks. We're waiting for the most up-to-date unemployment numbers from the Department of Labor here and from the Louisiana Workforce Commission. It was up to about 3,900 folks in Livingston Parish, with 119,000 statewide applying for unemployment benefits. So please keep those folks in your prayers. Carter's grocery store is installing plexiglass protection shields in front of the checkout registers to try to protect both their employees and the customers, trying to add a little bit of fake distance in between folks to try to meet those social distancing guidelines. So that installation began this week. They're hoping to finish up today. So please remember that if you're shopping at Carter's. They are local. Want to remind folks, okay, ldh.la.gov/coronavirus is where you can see the dashboard for the coronavirus numbers. If you want to go check that out at some point, dig into it, kind of learn a little bit about it, gives you a little bit more context and understanding for the stories that we're releasing. Want to remind folks also, if you go to livingstonparishnews.com/coronavirus, we do have everything there is free. We're keeping y'all up to date as quickly as these things come out. And of course, that dashboard will add a little bit of context. Want to remind folks, it's not about the number of new cases necessarily, because a lot of times they hit a log jam. A lot of times it takes 6-7 days to get those reported. It is mostly about the number of people in hospitals and the number of ventilators that are being used. The more beds that get used, the more ventilators that get used, these things could overflow. And once they start to overflow out of one district, other districts are already stressed for especially the Baton Rouge area. So if you're here in Livingston Parish and you're looking for a reason to worry about this, watching District 1 is very important, and that would be the New Orleans area, because once those cases overwhelm their hospital infrastructure or overwhelm those ventilators, folks are going to be looking for another place to go to the hospital. You can also expect more overflow as they try to take most of the surge beds and new ventilators down there to try to keep it from becoming an Italy situation where they have to decide who gets a ventilator, who doesn't, who gets appropriate care, and who doesn't. So please keep that in mind. Please stay home. Practice those mitigation efforts. Washing your hands for 20 seconds or more with soap and water. Disinfecting common surfaces. Staying home if you're sick and contacting your doctor via telehealth. Controlling your cough with a tissue or your elbow. 10 or less people to any kind of gathering, that includes your office, and 6 feet or more in between you and others I guess you can say public areas, including the doctor's office, including the pharmacy, and including the grocery store, which, if you are not an essential worker, should be the only places you're going right now. Again, one last time with your traffic looking relatively clear. Not a whole lot going out there right now with school canceled for the time being, or postponed, I guess you can say, right now until April 30th. And as well as, most people not being essential workers working from home. It's currently 57 degrees, 81 degrees is your high, 62 degrees your overnight low. And you're going to be looking at intermittent sun and clouds today. One last time, my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys joining us for the at-home version of the Livingston Parish News Morning Show. We are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays. We are also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. And we want to remind folks that you can go to that website and go to the coronavirus page. All of that information is free. We suggest you check it out, please. We also want you to check out our stories on Facebook and Instagram. We're releasing a lot of content there, especially trying to remind people of the social distancing efforts, mitigation efforts, and that sort of thing. Also, want to remind folks about the website ldh.la.gov. Please go check it out to get a little context on those numbers. We hope you have a great weekend. Please try to stay home. Please try to stay well. Please stay safe. And we will be back with you Monday morning. Thanks again for joining us.